The man who came to save my life was the first person who made me wonder whether survival could become another kind of prison. Rain whispered against the windows of Carter Books, soft at first, then harder, until the glass trembled inside its old wooden frame. It was almost midnight, 3 hours past closing, and I was still sitting behind the register with Noah's final inventory ledger open in front of me. My brother had been dead for 6 weeks. The police called it an accident. I called it a sentence that made less sense every time I heard it. I traced his handwriting beneath the yellow light of the desk lamp, searching for something I could not name. A message, an explanation, anything that might tell me why Noah had spent his final month looking over his shoulder. The lights outside went dark, not one at a time, all at once. The street lamps vanished. The bakery sign across the road disappeared. Even the traffic signal at the corner stopped glowing through the rain. My hand froze above the ledger. Then headlights swept across the front windows. A black sport utility vehicle stopped at the curb. Its engine remained running. I reached beneath the counter for my phone, but the screen showed no signal. The bell above the door rang once. A man stepped inside as if the locked door had never been an obstacle. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet 2 inches, dressed in a charcoal overcoat carrying tiny beads of rain across the shoulders. Dark hair, controlled posture, eyes that moved through the store without wasting a second on anything unimportant. He looked at the exits first, then the windows, then me. Elena Carter? His voice was low and precise. I stood slowly. We are closed. I know. He turned the lock behind him. The clicks sounded louder than the storm. Open that door. He did not move. Instead, he reached into his coat and placed something on the counter between us. A Silver City identification badge. Noah's badge. The edge was scratched where he used to tap it against his coffee mug while thinking. My lungs forgot what they were supposed to do. Where did you get that? Your brother gave it to me. That is impossible. No. What happened to him was impossible. The stranger's expression never changed, but something tightened behind his eyes. My name is Vincent Hale. I knew the name. Everyone in Chicago did, although most people pretended they did not. Hale owned hotels, shipping companies, several private security firms downtown, and enough quiet influence to make powerful people lower their voices. I stepped away from the counter. Get out. Vincent glanced toward the rain-covered window. A gray sedan sat across the street with its lights off. I had noticed it twice that week. I had told myself it belonged to someone living above the bakery. Vincent looked back at me. Your brother died protecting something. The people who want it believe he left it with you. Cold moved through me, deeper than fear. I do not have anything. They will not believe you. And I should believe you? No. His answer came without hesitation. But you should believe that car has followed you for 4 days. A shadow shifted behind the sedan's windshield. My heartbeat struck hard against my ribs. Vincent stepped closer, stopping several feet away and leaving the distance between us untouched. I came to keep you alive. I gripped the edge of the counter. I did not ask for your protection. Noah did. The words landed softly. That made them worse. Vincent's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, then looked toward the back of the store. We have less than 2 minutes. I wanted to call him a liar. I wanted to tell him nobody had the right to walk into my life and turn it into a locked room. Then the handle on the rear door moved once. Slowly, carefully. Vincent held out his hand, not touching me and not pulling me toward him. You can hate me tomorrow, Elena. Tonight, you stay alive. Across the street, the man inside the gray sedan lifted a phone to his ear. I would later learn that the call had been routed through a security channel used by someone inside Vincent's organization. I did not take Vincent Hale's hand. I grabbed Noah's badge from the counter and followed him through the narrow aisle between the history shelves. The handle on the rear door moved again, slower this time, as if whoever stood outside already knew the lock would not stop them for long. Vincent pressed 2 fingers to a device hidden beneath his coat collar. South entrance. Now. He spoke quietly, but footsteps answered from the alley almost immediately. A side door near the storage room opened, revealing 2 men in dark coats and a second black vehicle waiting beneath the ring. Vincent let me walk ahead of him. He never touched my arm. Somehow, that restraint felt more deliberate than force would have. The moment I entered the vehicle, the doors locked. Unlock them, I said. Vincent sat across from me while the city slid past the tinted windows. Not until we are clear. You said protection. You did not say kidnapping. If I were kidnapping you, Elena, we would not be having this conversation. That is not as comforting as you think it is. His eyes held mine for one unreadable second. Then he looked toward the driver. Unlock her door. A soft click followed. I could have opened it. We were moving nearly 40 miles per hour through rain-covered streets, but the choice existed. Vincent understood what that meant to me before I did. 40 minutes later, iron gates opened in front of a stone house overlooking Lake Michigan. House was the wrong word. It was a fortress pretending to be a home. Warm lights glowed behind tall windows. Security cameras followed the vehicle as we crossed the circular drive. Inside, everything was quiet, polished, and prepared. A woman named Margaret showed me to a bedroom larger than my entire apartment. New clothes hung in the closet. Toiletries filled the bathroom. On the desk sat a printed schedule for the next 7 days, including meals, security briefings, and approved phone calls. I read it twice. Then I carried it to the fireplace and held one corner over the flame. The paper curled, darkened, and disappeared into ash. Vincent watched from the doorway. Was that necessary? He asked. Yes. I turned to face him. 3 rules. His expression shifted slightly. Not surprise. Interest. Go on. Nobody enters this room without my permission. Nobody makes decisions about my life without asking me. And you tell me everything you know about Noah. The fire cracked. Behind me, Vincent removed his coat and folded it over one arm. The first rule is reasonable. They are all reasonable. The second will be difficult while someone is watching you. Difficult is not impossible. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. And the third? Silence settled between us. Heavy. Careful. Vincent, did you bring me here because Noah asked you to protect me, or because you need whatever he left behind? For the first time that night, he looked away. You should sleep. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting tonight. He closed the door without crossing the threshold. Sleep never came. Nearly an hour later, I stepped into the upstairs hall for water and noticed a thin line of light beneath the door of Vincent's private office below. A figure emerged, paused at the bottom of the stairs, and disappeared down another corridor before I could see his face. The next morning, Vincent would tell me nobody had been authorized to enter that room. I slept for less than 2 hours. Every sound in Vincent's house pulled me awake again. The quiet hum of the heating system, the soft click of footsteps beyond my door, the distant roll of waves against the shore. By 6 a.m, the rain had stopped, leaving the windows silver beneath a pale Chicago sky. Margaret brought coffee and breakfast, but I barely touched either. My phone had been returned, fully charged, with every contact intact. That should have reassured me. Instead, it made me wonder who had handled it and what they had learned. Vincent appeared at 8 wearing a dark navy suit and the same unreadable expression from the night before. You are coming with me, he said. I looked up from Noah's badge. That sounds like a decision you made without asking. He paused. Then he corrected himself. Will you come with me? Where? A charity luncheon at the Blackstone. Several officials connected to Noah's investigation will be there. And you need me to identify them? I need to observe how they react when they see you. He explained that the hotel had controlled entrances, private security, and cameras covering every public corridor. The event was not merely a public appearance. It was a test. Anyone frightened by Noah's sister would make a call, leave the room, or reveal who they were watching. You also want them to see that I am protected, I said. Yes. Protected by you, specifically. They already believe you are connected to me. Today, we learn what that belief makes them do. An hour later, the city rose around us in steel, stone, and morning traffic. The Blackstone stood near Grant Park, its entrance crowded with cameras, donors, and men who smiled without warmth. Vincent walked beside me, never touching me, but the space around us opened as if his presence carried its own gravity. Conversations softened. Heads turned. People stepped aside. Inside the ballroom, crystal glasses caught the light from chandeliers high above the marble floor. Vincent introduced me to city officials, business owners, and foundation directors. Each one looked at me for half a second too long. I could see the questions forming behind their polite expressions. What did Noah Carter's sister know? What had she inherited? Then Vincent took the microphone. Miss Carter is under the protection of my organization, he said. The room became still. Any matter involving her safety or her brother's estate will be handled through counsel. The words were controlled. Respectable. Almost generous. They also closed every invisible door around me. A councilman who had promised to call me suddenly avoided my eyes. A woman from the city archives gathered her papers and left. Vincent had made me untouchable. He had also made me impossible to approach. I leaned closer, so only he could hear me. Protection without choice is captivity with better furniture. Something flickered in his face. Regret, perhaps, or recognition. Before he could answer, Grant Mercer approached with 2 glasses of sparkling water. He was tall, silver at the temples, composed in the practiced way of men who believe they could never be surprised. "Elena," he said warmly, "your brother spoke about you often." He adjusted his sleeve, almost too deliberately, and a small silver cuff link caught the chandelier light. It was oval-shaped and engraved with a tiny compass. My stomach tightened. I had given Noah that pair for his 31st birthday. Grant watched my face as if waiting to see whether I recognized it. "Something wrong?" he asked. I raised my eyes to his. "Where did you get that cuff link?" Vincent went completely still beside me. Grant smiled, but the warmth never reached his eyes. It was a gift. I already knew he was lying. Grant kept smiling as if the answer should have satisfied me. It did not. Noah had worn those cuff links to every important meeting for 3 years. I remembered fastening them for him the morning he testified before the city finance committee because his hands had been shaking too badly to manage the clasps. He had laughed and told me courage was easier when someone else helped with the small things. Now one of them rested on Grant Mercer's wrist. "A gift from whom?" I asked. Grant lifted his glass. "Your brother." Vincent turned toward him. The movement was small, but the air between them changed. "Noah gave you that." "A few months before his accident." Grant spoke easily. Too easily. He said I had earned it. I wanted to challenge him, but Vincent touched the edge of the table, not me, and said, "We are leaving." Grant watched us cross the ballroom. His expression remained pleasant until the elevator doors closed. Then Vincent pressed the button for the lobby and looked at Noah's badge in my hand. "You believe he stole it?" Noah would have given away his watch before those cufflinks. "Why?" "Because I gave them to him." The elevator descended in silence. When the doors opened, Vincent made one call. "Clear Carter books. No one enters before we arrive." 30 minutes later, I stood inside my bookstore while 2 security men waited outside. Morning light filled the aisles, catching dust above the shelves. Everything looked ordinary. That made the fear worse. Noah had spent years in this place. If he had hidden something, he would have chosen a location that meant nothing to anyone else. I walked toward the back wall, where we kept books no customer ever bought. Old atlases, damaged encyclopedias, a collection of detective novels Noah had read every summer since high school. One volume sat backward. I pulled it free. Its pages had been carefully glued around a hollow center. Inside lay a small brass key. A number had been engraved along the side. It matched an account at a private vault facility near the Chicago River. Vincent arranged secure transportation, but he allowed me to speak to the manager and sign every form myself. The box waiting in the vault contained no money, jewelry, or photographs. Only a black flash drive, a paper ledger filled with numbers, and a note in Noah's handwriting. "Elena, remember the system we made when Dad sold the first editions? When we were children, Noah and I had invented our own classification code to track books our father kept misplacing. Numbers for genres, letters for authors, small symbols for shelves. To anyone else, the ledger looked meaningless. To me, it was a map. Back at the lake house, I spread the pages across Vincent's dining table and began translating. Shipping companies became city departments. Book titles became account names. Publication dates became payment records. Vincent watched without interrupting until the first complete sentence appeared. "Did you save me because Noah asked you to, or because you need this?" I asked. "Both." The honesty hurt more than a lie. I decoded the next line. My hand stopped moving. Vincent leaned closer, but I covered the page before he could read it. At that moment, Grant entered the room. "What does it say?" he asked. I looked at the warning beneath my hand, then met his eyes. "It says Noah believed someone inside the city had altered the contracts." Grant studied me for a second. "Your brother suspected everyone. That was his job." Vincent moved between Grant and the table. "We are finished for tonight." Grant nodded and left. Only after his footsteps disappeared did I turn the ledger toward Vincent. The real message contained one sentence. "Do not trust the man standing closest to Vincent Hale." The man Noah had warned me about had been standing in the doorway. Vincent waited until Grant's footsteps disappeared before activating a privacy system beside the fireplace. A soft tone moved through the room. "What was that?" I asked. "It blocks unauthorized signals and records attempts to transmit from this room. You did not trust your own house before tonight. I trusted the people inside it." He looked toward the closed door. "That may have been the mistake. We worked until nearly dawn." Noah's code unfolded slowly, each line turning ordinary numbers into names, dates, and payments. Grant Mercer had approved false security contracts through 3 city departments. Money had moved into shipping accounts controlled by companies tied to Vincent. On paper, it appeared that Vincent had authorized everything. "He was building a case against you," I said. Vincent stood at the far end of the table, both hands resting on the polished wood. "Not alone." I decoded the next column. The initials O and S appeared beside every transfer. Owen Shaw. Vincent's expression hardened. A police inspector assigned to public corruption cases. Noah met him twice before he died. I found the dates in an old calendar entry on my phone. He thought Shaw was helping him. Shaw was helping Grant. The truth settled over the room with terrible clarity. Noah had trusted the system. Grant had used that trust to keep him close. I stared at the ledger until the numbers blurred. "We need to release this." "Not yet." Vincent reached toward the flash drive. I pulled it back. "You do not get to decide that alone. The records show suspicious transfers, but not intent. Grant will claim he followed instructions carrying my authorization. Then we make him explain the truth himself." I turned the ledger around and pointed to the next payment date. Grant expected another transfer in 3 days. We could create a decoy file showing that Noah had hidden the original evidence behind the west shelves at Carter Books. If Grant believed I had broken with Vincent and taken the records, he might attempt to recover them personally. Vincent read the page. "That plan puts you in the center. It puts me where I choose to stand. It is too dangerous. You do not get to protect me from decisions that belong to me." The words landed harder than I intended. Vincent looked away first. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "Grant supervised my security network for 11 years. His authorization code still has access to transportation routes, camera logs, and emergency updates. Then remove it." "Not yet. If we remove it, he will know we suspect him." Vincent opened a laptop and entered a sequence of commands. "We leave the access active, but every action he takes will be copied to a separate log." We created a false ledger and loaded harmless financial summaries onto a decoy flash drive. The original evidence remained encrypted inside Vincent's private system, with additional copies sent through his attorney to a state public corruption unit. I clipped a miniature recorder behind Noah's brass key and tested the encrypted upload. One press would send the recording to Vincent, Claire, Noah's investigative reporter, and the attorney coordinating with state investigators. We had a plan. It was controlled. It was legal. It also depended on Vincent allowing me to lead once the trap began. At 11:43 that morning, the security log changed. Grant's credentials had accessed the planned route from the lake house to Carter Books. He had also downloaded the vehicle assignment. Vincent turned the screen toward me. He took the bait. I looked at the decoy drive on the desk. Then we give him the choice to expose himself. By noon, the plan was ready, but preparation was not the same as trust. I learned that when I called Claire and heard a security officer answer her phone. He told me she had been moved to an apartment near Lincoln Park. When Claire finally came to the line, she sounded confused. Vincent's people had told her that I requested the move and that the details could not be discussed until she arrived. She had agreed because she believed the request came from me. It had not. I found Vincent in his office standing beside the windows, Chicago gray beneath the afternoon clouds. "You used my name to move Claire." He turned slowly. She was being watched. Did she know why she was leaving? She knew there was a security concern. That is not informed consent. Her safety could not wait for a complete explanation. "You promised not to make decisions about my life. Claire is not your possession." "Elena." "Exactly. She is not yours either." The silence between us felt colder than the lake outside. Vincent stepped away from the window. "You are right about one thing. I should not have used your name. I am right about more than one thing." I picked up the decoy flash drive and the false ledger from his desk. "Where are you going?" "To begin the plan we agreed on. Grant may have changed more than the route. We should delay. If we delay now, he will know we saw his access log. Vincent looked at the recorder hidden behind the brass key around my neck. The driver knows to transmit his location through a separate channel. State investigators will remain several minutes behind you. I will stay farther back unless you use the signal. And when Grant approaches me, I follow your lead. The words sounded difficult for him. That was why I believed them. A sedan waited in the circular drive with a driver Vincent had assigned earlier. The route to Carter Books had been programmed into the navigation system. For the first 10 minutes, everything looked familiar. Lakeshore Drive, Michigan Avenue, slow afternoon traffic near the river. Then the navigation screen flashed with an emergency update carrying Grant's authorization code. The driver turned west where he should have continued south. The route has changed, he said. His voice remained controlled, but his hand moved once beneath the dashboard, activating the hidden location transmitter. The streets grew narrower. Warehouses replaced office buildings. A gray car waited beside a locked loading gate, the same color as the one that had watched my bookstore. My phone showed 1% battery. I sent Vincent the message we had prepared. Do not come to take me back. Come because you trust my plan. The message sent just before the screen went black. I placed one hand over the false ledger on my lap. Grant had seen me leave the house after arguing with Vincent. He had accessed the camera logs and changed the route himself. He would believe I had taken Noah's real evidence and abandoned Vincent's protection. He had no way to know that the drive inside my bag was a decoy. The original records had never left the lake house, and every word he said next could reach the people waiting to investigate him. The gray car door opened, and Grant Mercer stepped into the cold afternoon light as if he had arrived for a business meeting. Inspector Owen Shaw followed him, wearing a dark overcoat and the patient expression of a man who believed every outcome had already been arranged. My driver remained behind the wheel. He was part of the plan, but Grant did not know that. I placed one hand over the false ledger on my lap. You changed the route, I said. Grant approached the rear door. You forced us to become efficient. You could have asked for the file. Your brother believed questions deserved honest answers. Look where that belief took him. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice level. The ledger is not here. Grant's calm expression shifted. Only slightly. It was enough. Then where is it? At Carter Books. Noah built a compartment behind the west shelves. The lie came smoothly because part of it was true. There was a compartment. It was simply empty. Grant looked at Shaw. Neither man noticed the recorder hidden behind the brass key around my neck. Show us where it is, Grant said. 20 minutes later, I unlocked the bookstore while Grant and Shaw entered behind me. The familiar smell of paper and dust steadied my breathing. I walked toward the west wall, counting each step. Vincent knew the store and the security system. State investigators were monitoring the signal from several blocks away. More importantly, Vincent had promised to wait until I gave the safety phrase. Grant stopped beside the history section. Your brother should have given me the evidence when he had the chance. He trusted you. He trusted rules. Rules protect institutions, not people. Shaw glanced toward the windows. We should finish this. I slid the false ledger from my bag and placed it on the reading table. Grant opened it, scanning the pages. This is incomplete. It is enough to connect you to the city contracts. It connects Vincent Hale, he corrected. That was always the purpose. His companies received the money. His name appeared on the approvals. When the investigation began, he would fall, and his organization would become manageable. And Noah? I asked. Grant closed the ledger. Noah refused to understand that truth survives only when powerful people allow it to survive. Every word entered the recorder. Every pause. Every careful confession. Shaw stepped closer to the table. Where is the original drive? I pressed the brass key once. A faint vibration confirmed that the encrypted recording had reached Vincent, Claire, Noah's reporter, and the attorney working with state investigators. Then I gave the phrase Vincent was waiting for. The original was never in this building. Grant's practiced warmth disappeared. Then this was a trap. No, it was a choice. You chose to explain everything. The front door opened. Vincent stepped inside alone, but he did not move toward me or interrupt. He looked at Grant, then at the key resting against my coat. You let her do this, Grant said. Vincent's eyes remained on mine. She asked me to trust her. A moment later, state public corruption investigators entered through the front and rear doors. They had already obtained warrants using Noah's financial records, the security logs, and the live transmission Grant had just provided. Grant and Shaw were taken into custody for formal questioning. Vincent waited until everyone had left before placing my recharged phone, bookstore keys, and Noah's complete file on the counter. "Nothing of yours will ever be held by me again," he said. I gathered them slowly. "What happens now?" His answer was quieter than any command he had ever given. "Now you choose where you go." For the first time since Vincent Hale entered my bookstore, nobody followed me home. No black sedan waited at the curb. No security detail stood beneath the street lamp. No message appeared on my phone telling me where to go or when to leave. The silence should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt unfamiliar. Carter Books reopened 4 days later. Claire helped me replace the broken lock and rearrange the front display, although she spent most of the morning criticizing my choice of coffee and pretending she had not cried when I walked through her apartment door. Vincent sent her a written apology for using my name and withholding the full reason for her relocation. He offered to pay for the expenses caused by the move. Claire accepted the apology and rejected the money. I understood both decisions. The city moved quickly after the recording reached investigators. Grant, Mercer, and Owen Shaw were formally charged as the inquiry expanded. Several contracts were frozen. Reporters filled the sidewalk outside City Hall. Noah's name appeared in every article, no longer beside the word accident, but beside words like evidence, courage, and integrity. Vincent's name appeared too, although not as often as I expected. He released financial records, cooperated with investigators, and stepped away from 3 city projects connected to Grant. He never contacted me. At first, I told myself that was what I wanted. He had returned everything. He had kept his promise. I was free. But freedom had a strange sound when it arrived without the person who had finally learned how to give it. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I saw Vincent once on television leaving a courthouse in a dark coat, surrounded by cameras. He looked tired, not weak. Vincent Hale would never allow the world to see weakness. But I noticed the pause before he entered his car, the brief moment when he looked across the street as if expecting someone to be there. I turned off the television before I could wonder whether that person was me. The answer came inside Noah's file. I had avoided the last folder because it carried my name in his handwriting. One Sunday evening, after closing the store, I finally opened it. Inside was Noah's letter and a draft agreement prepared by Owen Shaw 3 months before Noah died. It was not an official government offer. It was a corrupt bargain. Shaw had promised to remove Vincent's companies from the investigation if Vincent surrendered Noah's evidence and revealed where I could be found. Vincent had signed nothing. Across the final page, he had written one sentence. "She is not part of any bargain." My vision blurred. Noah's letter explained that Vincent was dangerous in the way powerful men often were, certain that control could solve what trust could not. But Noah also wrote that when given the chance to save himself by sacrificing me, Vincent had refused before he even knew me. He had protected my name long before he protected my life. That did not erase the locked doors, the schedules, or the decisions taken from me. His earlier choice did not excuse his later mistakes. What mattered was what he had done after I left. No messages, no hidden protection, no reward demanded for his restraint. He had not stayed away because he no longer cared. He had stayed away because I had asked him to understand freedom. And for once, he had listened. I closed the store early the next evening. The sky above Chicago was clear, the lake reflecting a thin line of gold from the setting sun. I drove north with Noah's brass key resting in my coat pocket. When the iron gates of Vincent's estate came into view, they opened after a security camera recognized my license plate. No guard approached my car. No one told me where to park. I stopped near the front steps and listened to my own breathing. The house looked exactly as I remembered it. Stone walls, tall windows, warm light behind glass. But nothing about it felt like a prison now. Perhaps because this time, I had brought myself there. Vincent was standing alone on the terrace when I found him. The lights of Chicago shimmered along the distant southern horizon while the wind moved softly through the trees below. He did not turn when the doors opened. Perhaps he recognized my footsteps. Perhaps he had learned not to assume I was coming toward him. I stopped several feet away. "You knew I was here." The gate notified security. His voice was quiet. "I told them not to approach you." "That is new. I have been practicing." He turned then, and for the first time since I had met him, Vincent Hale looked uncertain. There was none of his usual tailored confidence. No command waited behind his eyes. There was only a man standing in the space between what he wanted and what he had finally learned he could not demand. I read Noah's letter, I said. His expression changed, but he did not ask what it said. You refused Shaw's agreement. You were not mine to exchange. I was not yours at all. I know. The answer came without resistance. That mattered more than I expected. I stepped closer and placed Noah's brass key on the railing between us. I will never belong to you, Vincent. The wind carried the words across the terrace, but he heard every one. Then do not belong to me. His gaze stayed on mine. Choose me, or leave whenever you need to. I had imagined this moment differently during the drive. I had expected promises, arguments, perhaps another carefully controlled speech about safety. Instead, he gave me the one thing I had demanded from the beginning. A door without a guard. A decision without pressure. There are conditions, I said. Name them. No secrets that affect my life. Agreed. No decisions made for me because you believe fear gives you the right. Agreed. Claire remains outside your security plans unless she asks for help and receives the full truth. A faint shadow of regret crossed his face. Agreed. And if you want me beside you, then that is where I stand. Not behind you. Not beneath you. Vincent looked down at the key, then back at me. Beside me. I picked it up and placed it in his open hand, closing his fingers around it. This does not mean you own anything. I understand. It means I trust you with something that still belongs to me. His hand remained still beneath mine. He did not pull me closer. He did not turn the moment into a claim. He simply waited until I chose to leave my hand there. Behind us, the doors to the house stood open. No guards. No instructions. No schedule waiting on a desk. I looked through them and saw a place that had once felt like a cage. Now it was only a house. Vincent followed my gaze. You can stay tonight. Then he stopped himself. Would you like to stay? I smiled despite myself. You really have been practicing. It has not been easy. Good. Important things rarely are. We walked inside together, our steps even across the marble floor. Months later, people still whispered when Vincent entered a room. Doors still opened before he reached them. Powerful men still lowered their voices when he spoke. He ruled the city through discipline, fear, and a name. Nobody ignored. But the first thing he ever truly gave me was not protection, money, or power. It was the right to walk away. And the reason I stayed was that he finally understood the difference.